Hey, Ron, you need to turn your camera.
Looks like we are. Got
Yeah.
videos up.
There you go.
Is that it?
Yep.
How's that,
You
Sarah?
just need to rotate your not the right way.
She
How's
wants you
that?
No, she wants you to. You mean like this?
Yeah. But now we need to, it's a little, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna have to raise this.
This is, so here you go. This will keep them in place if you think it's sliding, but is that all right?
Okay, how's that? Where's the camera? Right here?
Yep.
Okay. How's that, Sarah? Does that look
It's
good?
good. Yep.
You can hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, we're ready to rock if you are.
All right. Here we go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Looks like we have everyone joined. Like the advisory said, we'll send out a recording of this afterwards. So keep an eye out for that, but I will let the congressman take it away.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Listen, in a matter of moments, I'll be casting a vote in favor of one article of impeachment against Donald J. Trump for inciting insurrection. If what happened last Wednesday is not an impeachable offense, there is no impeachable offense. I suspect there's going to be bipartisan support this time in Congress for it. I'm guessing double digit. Over the last few days, I've been having extensive conversations with my Republican colleagues, some of whom will be voting for articles of impeachment. But I tell you, if this were a secret ballot, it would be an overwhelming vote for impeachment today in the House. I also find it interesting that stories now are coming out that Majority Leader Mitch McConnell in the Senate is contemplating voting to convict President Trump based on his insurrectionist comments last week. But the third ranking Republican in the House of Representatives, Liz Cheney, who will be voting for impeachment today, stated, and I quote, "The President of the United States summoned this mob, assembled this mob, and lit the flame of this attack. Everything that followed was his doing. None of this would have happened without the President of the United States." John Katko, a Republican colleague of mine from New York, who's the ranking member on the Committee for Homeland Security, is also voting for impeachment. And he stated that to allow the President of the United States to incite this attack without consequences is a direct threat to the future of our democracy. And then Republican Representative Pete Meijer of Utah, who also is supporting impeachment, stated, "What happened was an act of domestic terrorism inspired and encouraged by the President of the United States." I believe that the president still presents a clear and present danger to the safety of our country, not just based on the conduct of last week that led to the mob and the insurrection on our nation's capital, but even his comments yesterday, where he claimed that all of his remarks from last week were entirely appropriate. He has not apologized for his role in this at all. And he is still the commander in chief in charge of the most powerful military in the world, and obviously having influence over millions of Americans, as we saw on the streets of our nation's capital last Wednesday. But as I always do when I'm in Washington, I get up early in the morning and run the mall. And I have to tell you that this morning it felt as if our nation's capital is under siege, with barricades that have been erected in the last few days, large walls and fences that have been put up. More military boots on the ground today in our nation's capital than all of the military personnel in both Iraq and Afghanistan. This is not the way it's supposed to be. And as we enter the final week of the Trump presidency, I was just thinking about what his legacy will be. Well, first and foremost, a capital under siege in the United States is one of those legacies. He's getting his goal of building a big, beautiful wall. Unfortunately, that wall is surrounding the United States Capitol. It is a nation bitterly divided right now, not just along partisan lines, but back home too in our local communities, with families splitting apart, a coronavirus that is still winning, and an economy that is still reeling because of the lack of his leadership. Historically large budget deficits that preceded the coronavirus outbreak in our country, and a loss of trust and faith in our democratic institutions and in elected representatives. And it's going to require all of us to come together to figure out the best way of healing this legacy that Trump is leaving behind. In my remarks today in favor of impeachment in Congress, I stated that right now, at this moment in history, to me, there are only two parties that matter, not a Republican or a Democratic party, but the party of constitutionalists or the party of insurrectionists. The constitutionalists believe in the Constitution, the rule of law, due process, human rights and civil liberties for all of our citizens. The party of insurrectionists don't believe that. They don't adhere to the rule of law. In fact, they are prone to inciting violence in our community. And it's going to be a determination for each of us to make now in the coming days of whether we can be the party of constitutionalists or a party of insurrectionists. I can work with constitutionalists across the aisle every day of the week. And I have many Republican friends who I do work with and who do put the Constitution ahead and above of any one individual or any one party. It's those who have been perpetrating this big lie of a stolen election and inflaming the passions of so many followers who have been prone to believe that there was election fraud and that Joe Biden didn't legitimately win the election, that we're going to have problems with going forward. But I guess the good news today is that within 7 days, we will have a new president of the United States in Joe Biden and a new administration, someone who I believe is going to restore integrity, and honesty, and trust and decency again in the Oval Office, who I believe is going to do his best to try to heal the wounds of our nation, to find areas of common ground. He has pledged to be the president for all Americans, not just those who supported him, but especially those who didn't, and to do good by them. It's an administration, I think, that will give us a breath of fresh air, but he will be singularly focused on defeating the virus, deploying the vaccine, and building back better America and our communities the way they should be. So I am looking forward to that inauguration and the start of a new era of reconciliation and healing in our country. But insurrectionist comments and actions, there must be accountability. And that's what Congress is bringing today in the one article of impeachment for inciting insurrection and holding President Trump responsible for his action in trying to protect our country in the final days of his administration. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Congressman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Have you heard of any of your colleagues on the Republican side who may have cooperated with any of the demonstrators who ended up breaching the Capitol, as some in the Democratic caucus have alleged? And if so, who?
Yeah, there's an ongoing investigation, and it's going to take a while to unravel all of this and individuals' role in inciting the mob and the insurrection that we saw last Wednesday in our nation's capital. Some of the news outlets have reported that one of the organizers gathering people to try to overturn the election result was coordinating activity with 3 members of Congress. Now, naturally, that is going to have to be followed up, and questions will have to be asked and answered. That is deeply troubling. And listen, us members of Congress have woken up to a new world on Capitol Hill as well, with the barriers, the fences, and now we too have to be going through metal detectors because of the concern that many members have about their fellow colleagues, those who are carrying weapons, who refuse to disarm even when they come to the floor of the House of Representatives. And it's created a very distrustful situation, which isn't healthy for anyone, let alone the performance of our government.
Congressman, last week it was reported that you were worried about the precedent that this would set, a rush setting for impeachment. How has that changed this week to now go forward with proving impeachment?
I was, because of the timeline especially, and that's why I called for, if there's any ounce of decency in Donald Trump at all, for him just to voluntarily resign and allow the transition of power to take place with Vice President Pence. He's refused to do so. And that's why yesterday I voted to have Vice President Pence in the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment and therefore remove him from office that way. But ultimately, this is going to come down to my Republican colleagues in Congress marching down to the White House and telling the president they no longer have his back. That's the only reason Richard Nixon stepped down and resigned in 1974. I think it's going to require the same type of action today.
Congressman, one of the other things that has been reported is members of Congress who feel like their own safety could be in jeopardy based on this vote. Do you feel that?
Listen, there are passions that have been aroused on all sides. And again, it's one of the legacies of Donald Trump, someone who has sought to divide our nation from day one, made no effort to try to heal the nation's wounds, to bring people together, to find areas of cooperation. He's been good at pushing buttons, and that has riled up both sides in this country. And it's unfortunate that we've been subjected to this type of leadership over the last 4 years. That's why I'm confident that with President-elect Biden and the attitude and the concern that he's going to bring as President of the United States to begin that healing and bring people together, that there are better days ahead. But right now, we still live in a very dangerous environment. And the president's comments yesterday did not help, not assuming any responsibility for the events of last week and claiming that his remarks were entirely appropriate. That's another reason why we feel compelled to move forward today with the article of impeachment to try to remove him from office. Obviously, he has learned nothing from last week's event, and he's still a very dangerous person today.
Congressman, can you hear me? It's Craig Gilbert.
Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
As a Democrat who represents a district that was carried twice by Donald Trump, I wonder what you're hearing from Republicans in your district about all of this.
Well, listen, Craig, obviously any impeachment matter is devoid from politics as far as I'm concerned. I need to exercise my best judgment and do what I think is going to be in the best interest of the people I represent back home and for the country at large. But my phone lines have been ringing off the hook on both sides. Those who have been demanding support for impeachment and those who just want the next 7 days to slide by and to move on. It's going to be hard to begin reconciliation and healing, however, Craig, if there isn't accountability to all of this. And so for those who are saying, well, time is limited, we should just move on, just let bygones be bygones, that is not going to help the type of healing our nation needs right now.
Congressman, how will this vote today, you know, we talk about healing, you hear the Republicans saying this is going to tear the country apart again. How will this vote in your mind lead to that healing you just mentioned?
Well, I tell you, this is really tearing the Republican Party apart. They are at war with each other. Liz Cheney, the third ranking member who I just quoted, there's now an effort in that House Republican conference to remove her from her leadership position. And there are many other members too who have spoken out forcefully against the president's conduct last week, who will be supporting the impeachment article, many of whom agree that if this conduct is not impeachable, there is nothing that is impeachable under our Constitution. So this is really a moment for the Republican Party to determine what type of future they want for their party and for our country. Is it one, again, that believes in the Constitution and rule of law, the constitutionalist as I described, or is it one that's going to put an individual or their party above the rule of law? And we're going to find out in a few minutes where they come down on that question. I'm sorry, whoever that was, it was garbled transmission, so I didn't get the question. I tell you what, thank you everyone for participating today. We're going to be getting ready to head over to the House floor in a few minutes. If there's any follow-ups, make sure you get in touch with Sarah. But thanks, and hold on. This is certainly an historic day in our nation's capital, but I have a feeling that much, much better days are just around the corner. So hang in there, stay safe. We'll see you back home. Thanks, everyone.